a very evil son of a bitch. Question of the day, before we move into the topic. Question of today. Do you remember where you were, or when it was, rather, that you were told for the first time gender and sex are different? Comment below. I'd love to hear from you because this is actually a very new, very modern thing. Do you guys remember where you were?
I was on this show.
Really? You were on this show?
So the last couple of years.
You were on this show too.
That's right, 2014, 2015.
See, in German school, when German schools were more progressive, we learned that in school.
Okay, you learned it in kindergarten.
Boy.
I learned it. I think I learned it in college, actually.
Coming to a magnet school near you.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reason this matters now, a lot of people aren't really aware of, and we'll put this here in 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less so you can understand the entire history of modern gender theory and how it's been differentiated from sex. Hint. It's a new thing. It's not a real thing. So the left now, they're absolutely going nuts over the Supreme Court, right? They're saying that this new pick, that it's going to destroy trans rights. That's the thing right now. They're talking about the ramifications of the transgender community. So right. This sex/gender, the distinction, is a foundation of modern sort of gender fluidity, the ideology. It's, you know this, I know this. It's very recently, though, been accepted as dogma.
You teach this. You teach trans studies. So if you would, give us a brief
primer
trans studies on so many gender identities that, in your view, require non-traditional pronouns.
Basically, it's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex.
Gender is how someone identifies, and it's something that's ascribed to each of us at birth in relation to our bodies. When you're born, you have no say in what gender you'll be raised as.
You also have no say in what you eat.
And you also poop uncontrollably.
Or any other sexual decisions at that age, let alone chopping off your penis. So this is something that's, you hear it all the time, you hear it talked about in school, and this is the crux of a lot of these new laws, of pronoun laws, of compelled language. But you don't generally hear about the dark history of this concept, and it's pretty recent. French existentialism is where it came from. It was a woman named Simone de Beauvoir. I think it was, let me bring it up right here, yeah, 1949. Who famously said one is not born, but rather becomes woman. Her book is The Second Sex. You can go read it. Now, here's something that's important. It was a theory. This is where it started, kind of the philosophy of gender as a social construct, but it was still within this idea, the binary concept, that you could be raised male or female, right. And that was the concept. It wasn't tested. It was a hypothesis that maybe it's socially conditioned. Now, here is what you learn in college. Here's what all of the modern gender books are based on. It comes after Simone de Beauvoir. This goes to sexologist, psychologist John Money. Took this one step further, tested the hypothesis in the 50s and 60s. And this is his hypothesis that he tested, which was based on Simone de Beauvoir, was sex was biological, gender could be socially conditioned. Okay, so he tried to test this theory on a baby boy. Baby boy named David Reimer, you probably read about this in college, lost his penis in a botched circumcision attempt. Well, here's a clip to give you more context.
It is also the story of the psychologist who treated him. A man with a radical theory about what makes us male and female, masculine and feminine.
He's brilliant. I think John is a brilliant man. I think he's one of the handful of most brilliant people I've ever met.
Together, they helped form one of the most famous theories in the history of modern psychology. That a boy, any boy, could be raised as a girl.
Okay, and this was something that was touted as a tremendous success, right? Removed David's testicles, raised him as a girl. So the treatment that people don't understand, right? This kid had a twin brother. Yeah. That's also important. So the idea was taking twins. This is the famous twin study you've probably heard to it referred. One raised boy, one raised girl, right. Twin boys. Treatment, social conditioning and then it was considered success and taught in college. What they don't tell you is that actually a part of the treatment was having children assume sexual positions to reinforce their gender roles. Money even took pictures of them doing that.
Well, people normally get put in jail for that today?
You would think so. Or in this case,
they don't really get a book deal?
You get your own subgenre of studies.
See, there you go, yeah. We're just going about this all wrong, aren't we?
The BuzzFeed Boldly ladies talk about it. So he published the papers, right, on David's case as proof. Gender was a social construct. Yeah. And this was then it was celebrated all across academia. Again, this is the crux of the modern gender/sex delineation here. We're separating gender and sex because of the twin study from John Money. The problem is that David we'll get to in a second, he didn't feel like he was a girl.
Right.
And he actually began living as a boy around 15 years old, when the true history of what had happened to him, the child abuse, as some of us referred to, but we lose our speaking gigs like me and Owen Benjamin, the child abuse was revealed to him. He started living as a boy.
I had Barbie dolls, clothing, but my brother was very generous. There's the odd day when he let me borrow his toys. We would play together. Because he knew how unhappy I was, so he let me play with his toys.
For Brenda, this was the first time in her life she started to feel happy. She said she wanted to be a boy.
So I said, okay, are you sure? Because there's no going back after. And he said, yes, he said, yes, I am sure that is what I want to do.
Okay.
Shedding the female persona of Brenda he was forced to portray.
Let's cut that. This might confusing. If you're sure you want to go back. What they mean go back is he was a boy, and then the guy had him being humped by his brother to tell him that he was a girl, and then they said, but actually you're a boy. Do you want to go? Do you want to just be what you were born? That's the question there. But how did this end up? Again, because it was taught in college for years after this. It's still why gender theory is taught. It's still why gender studies exist. It is based on a lie. Well, David's brother Brian became schizophrenic, overdosed on antidepressants. He died. David then himself blew his head off with a sawed-off shotgun. By the way, that's not a cry for help. That's someone with some follow-through. That's someone who wanted out. Let's be really clear about this. You wonder why the trans suicide rate is so high. It is literally based on the figurative petri dish of trans studies. The hypothesis was tested in a controlled lab. Okay, 2 twins, raise one as a boy, raise one as a girl. They said, success! Papers get published, degrees get given out on this topic, and then when one blows his head off with a shotgun and the other ODs, hush, hush, let's not talk about it, because the ends justify the means. But if it's all based on a lie, and then this was taken from the 80s and 90s, postmodernist thinkers, Judith Butler, you probably learned about in college, took this idea based, again, you can read about it, Judith Butler cites money, that gender is a social construct, and then tried to turn that into gender fluidity and infinite number of genders. So that was really only introduced in the 90s. Even John Money, in his screwed up way, still believed that he could turn a boy into a girl and a girl into a boy. It was this pansexual fluidity. This guy who was making kids mount each other and dry humping Levi's would have thought that was absurd.
He would even blush at how many letters we now have at the end of this thing.
And I hate to do the whole the whole conservative. See, the libtards, they're ones that they're fake science. They're the way anti-science. I hate doing that, but in this case, it's like they are the party of pseudoscientists. And then you branch this out to intersectionality and all kinds of theories of other oppressive classes and how it's fake science.
Well, it comes down to does the end justify the means? And for them, the end justifies the means, where we've broken down the gender barrier and people are free to be trans. Well, okay, let's say we agreed with that. The trans suicide rate doesn't get better pre-post surgery, and it mimics the original study that was the precursor for any and all current gender studies. It shouldn't be a surprise if you know the history, and a lot of people don't. This is it. If you trace it back, it all goes to the twin study. Modern gender theory is not based on science. Gender was used grammatically for a long time. As I speak French, it could apply to the word pot, right? It could apply to the word spoon. There's masculine and feminine nouns. So this idea, it's wordplay, and it's based on the hypothesis that was tested in a very evil way from a very evil son of a bitch. And the problem is, that's the basis, that's the root, as Chauncey if the roots are healthy, the tree will thrive. I understand. This is what's happened. This guy was a Chauncey Gardner, only everyone from professors to city council people to sitting senators, governors, and possibly your next president used this logic. We've encountered it all the time.
Doctors will play God and make a decision about what biological sex a child should have, and so they perform a surgery, in terms of physical manifestation, right?
Sure.
So then why should they have to choose I'm a male or a female if they were not born a male or a female?
Okay, so you're saying that male and female is a gender, not a sex?
Yes.
You're confused on the idea of gender versus sex?
I'm confused, okay.
Yeah, okay, so when we say there are only 2 genders, we often confuse the idea of gender and sex.
Sure.
Sex is a generalization of XY chromosomes.
Not as confused as a kid who was forcibly dry humped by his brother while his doctor took pictures as part of a science experiment, which is what you base your information on now, from which you draw your degree. Not quite as confused as that. So when people try to play that, they try to do the wordplay game, you don't have to go along with them. Just you need to know 3 people: Simone de Beauvoir, John Money, Judith Butler. Boom! Their argument is gone. Try it. See if it does not do wonders for you. By the way, on a related topic, according to a new study published in the Journal of Female Sciences, American women have the biggest breasts in the world. So that's nice. After the 4th of July, this is just another story in a long line of stories that I know there are some clouds out there in the news, but you don't have to look for silver linings. This is still the greatest country in the world.
To be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today.
We've turned the tables on Al Gore and used the internet to our advantage. If you like this video, subscribe by hitting the subscribe button or the notification bell next to it, because subscribing isn't enough. Watch one of these other videos and, listen, you can stick around. You don't have to.